Greetings everyone, Melderon here. I'm going to be doing something very new. I recently have been introduced to a video made by a content creator who is brand new in the scene, and I was contacted by this content creator, and he produced this video that's an opinion piece on world coherency, which is a very important aspect of Classic WoW. So I decided to actually, after viewing part of it, I realized how important this video was, and I want to do actually a live reaction to the video itself. Now, I've seen about a third of it, so I just want to put that out clear, and I've also contacted this content creator and told him I'm doing this, and it's something I think is very important. So I will be watching this video with you guys. I want everyone to see this and this video needs pretty much, in my eyes, a lot of exposure. It's done very, very well, and rarely do I see this type of quality, and if you guys want me to do this more, let me know in the comments below. I don't usually do anything like this. This is a first for me. But since I haven't been putting out vlogs in a very long time, I figured this is maybe a good alternative for me for a while. So let's get started. The video itself is called World Coherency WoW's Missing Link Introduction. And it's by Felix Valks Goodman. The title and the author are up top. So let's get started.
World Coherency, a pseudo-intellectual treatise on a neglected aspect of game design in World of Warcraft. This video is an animated narration of the introduction. The complete document can be accessed nearby at any time. Section 1. Starting definitions and semantics. World coherency is a term I am just now making up in an attempt to describe the relationship between players, player characters, and entities in a video game. It describes the degree to which an entity or event is persistent and permanent in terms of object permanence in the game world, as observed by the players. If you don't know what object permanence is, it's the concept of understanding something exists at a location without sensing it, because you sensed it there earlier, like what's in your fridge right now. Your capability for object permanence allows you to, right now, be certain that there is food in your refrigerator, and recall what some of those items are. Generally, objects in our universe are permanent. They are persistent if not acted upon. This principle can be applied to video games as well. Before we go deeper, I'm going to make heavy use of the terms in-universe, in-game, in-character, etc., assuming that the reader understands this lingo.
Honest invites to Baltimore.
If these terms are not intuitive for you, please see the appendix before commencing. Let's continue to define world coherency with an example situation that we're all familiar with. In a game with no world coherency, two players in the same location see that location differently, and the result of entity interactions are invisible to each other.
BFA?
In a game with full world coherency, player characters exist in the same exact world. The same entities are visible to both players, and the action of one player on an entity shows the same result for both players and affects them in the same way. Effectively, for the purposes of this program, world coherency means how real something feels because of how cohered that thing
Perfect
is within the
example,
game
AQ
world,
opening.
as different players see or interact with it. Co-responsivity between what each player sees is key. Later in this program, we will also integrate the first law of thermodynamics, but we'll get there. I don't want to scare you off just yet. Let's explore world coherency a little more to make this clearer. Here's the definition of the verb cohere: to stick together, be united, hold fast as parts of the same mass, to be united within a body by the action of molecular forces, to be naturally or logically connected, to agree, be congruous, end quote. Coherent, the adjective, also has a physics definition that is, quote, of or pertaining to waves that maintain a fixed phase relationship, end quote.
Correct.
Coherence as a word also has linguistic applications as well, for when something makes sense or not. This is a complicated word, but each application of it has the same central idea: consistency, logical connection, agreement, fitting together, being one, being in tune. World coherency of an MMORPG game world is basically the measure of its independent integrity, where all players experience it the same way, like they would a real world. World coherency determines how reliable the world is as one persistent world that all players share.
So that Melderon example, this is something, if you haven't played a Classic WoW, that we trope as a very important part of the game. This existence of a world where things happen and everyone sees it and can actually be part of it, something that in BFA this is heavily pushed down. So let's continue, but I just want to make that point.
Let's move on to putting these words into action.
Ready for action.
To exemplify world coherency, say that player character A and player character B are both observing a world object on the field that can only be activated once every 10 minutes.
Okay.
The intention for this object is that it is very special and can only be activated ever so often. As dictated by the world, whether through logic or story reasons, it is supposed to have only enough power to enchant one person at a time. The enchantment takes the form of a visual status effect. The character with the effect glows yellow. In this situation, we have two mechanics that are subject to world coherency: the object cooldown and the visual status effect. Mutual visibility between each other's characters is a given.
Hey! Oh.
Player character A activates the object. He gains the effect and cannot activate the object for another 10 minutes. Player character B sees A gain the effect, and neither can he activate the object until the cooldown is over.
No!
This is a situation where there is full world coherency, given the intention for that object. In universe, the object has been activated by someone. The enchantment is given to that person, and these events are fully reflected in everybody's perspective on the game world. In another instance, player character A activates the object. He gains the effect and cannot activate the object for another 10 minutes. Player character B does not see the visual status effect on A, nor is the object on cooldown from his perspective. He activates the object, gains his own effect, and his personal cooldown for the object begins.
We're layering.
Because of the special intention for that object, this is a situation where there is very little world coherency. A bare minimum is granted because each player saw the other approach the object.
Notice as he used the words hero there.
How gameplay significant to the player that the activation of this object is depends on how coherent it is within the world.
Absolutely.
How interesting to the player that this object activation is depends on the intention of the object and its link to its world coherency.
I made this point in a video that I made called Why Classic WoW Storytelling. And this is a beautiful extension of that, and I think my video is based in this idea, and this is the basis for that video, really, and I didn't even know about it. That feeling of a coherent world makes the story that much more pertinent because you know that things exist for everyone in the same value or existence place, you know? If you kill a mob and that mob dies, everyone sees it die, you know? If you do a quest where a cinematic or something like that happens, I'm thinking about that quest in Desolus where you turn in the quest for Horde at Ghostwalker, and there's like this animation that these spirits come and walk around, and everyone can see that, right, if you do that quest. So this ties into the storytelling aspect of the game.
Together, these two concepts determine the meaningfulness of a situation.
Absolutely. 100%.
What is gameplay significance? Let us say that this object, when activated, also instantly gives a fat load of cash to the player that activates it.
Nice.
Player A and player B both want the cash. In a world with coherency, only one of them can get it at a time. If one and only one character can activate it every 10 minutes, its activation becomes a lot more significant. It becomes a race. If there is player versus player involved, it becomes a fight.
Or Bashirina.
Players interact with each other and establish a relationship
Ancestors be praised.
because only one character can activate it at one time. If there are 3 players involved,
Yep,
2
exactly.
may team up against the third in order to ensure that the money won't go to someone that isn't a friend.
Well met.
Please help me.
Certainly. How does a
love
tauren
this.
hide in a cherry tree? He paints his hooves red.
Hooray!
Nothing you wouldn't have done for me.
Oh, the OP jokes
Because
were
of
so
this
good.
object's world coherency, its activation is significant between all players.
I'm sorry, I don't play Alliance, but I have to say the human jokes are the best, by far.
Now, consider a world without coherency. Player A sees Player B activate the object. Player A does not give the slightest care, because he can also activate it.
Yeah, this is BFA.
Player B has not significantly impacted the world of A. There is no player interaction. No relationship is established.
Look at that face.
Player B was nothing more than a character model, and maybe a floating name, running to and from the object. Player A has no reason to sling aspersions, or congratulate, or even think about Player B. Because of the object's absence of world coherency, its activation is not significant between the players. I also mentioned player interest, and that finding something interesting was not necessarily related to how significant it is.
This is the picture you get from doing the Lincoln Quest chain and Ungro Crater.
This is where we need context, which should be given by the game.
And so
Oh,
it came
Diablo
to
2.
pass that the Countess, who once bathed in the rejuvenating blood of 100 virgins, was buried alive, and her castle in its soul...
This object is now the egg of a golden dragon. It is the last golden dragon of its kind. The players have heard and read about the riveting story of this dragon, and it can only swoop by and lay an egg every 10 minutes, in a desperate attempt to not let its legendary lineage die out. If an hour passes without anybody activating it by way of smashing it, a hatchling is spawned. The future is now uncertain and exciting. It is now interesting to the players, because of the developer's intention for it to be very special. This interest is magnified when it is fully coherent within the world, when one person's actions on it and the resulting consequence are visible to every player in the world and impacts them equally. Every player is sharing the same world and everything has persistence. Gameplay significance and player interest is skyrocketing. Take away world coherency from this situation. The same story context applies to the object, but one player's actions don't affect any other players. Or even the world, if you think about it. The state of the object from a player's perspective will only change according to that player's actions. The player is less interested now, because other players' actions don't affect his reality.
The egg can never truly be broken. That's philosophical. That's a philosophical, excellent question to ask yourself, right? And the Tauren is making a very good point here. Who the F cares that these eggs exist? It's just a quest at that point. It's a way to get gear. There's no reason to do it. There's no reason. It doesn't affect the story. It doesn't affect the world, right? And this is a pertinent reason why a lot of us are going back to Classic.
He knows that other player characters must be breaking the egg. Protecting the egg to let it hatch at this point is irrelevant because there's no one to defend their personal egg from. Whatever becomes of the egg, from that player's perspective, does not matter as much, because he is aware that the game has put each player in their own reality. There is no real truth as to what's actually happening in the universe. The player's interest and possibility of finding meaning in this now hinges much more heavily on their ability of suspension of disbelief. Let us take this one step further in exploring the possible link between intention and world coherency.
And this is what layering will do. I understand the intention there is to kind of deal with fluctuating populations in an early game, but this is what layering essentially does to the player base, in my opinion. It makes this, and I know this is mostly based off of sharding and BFA, but this is kind of the same thing, right? The object permanence doesn't exist in a way that it would if it was a seamless continent or world.
Say that the developers are aware of this incoherency, but they don't want players to be demoralized. Their solution is to change the story, such that there's actually a whole bunch of golden dragons.
I know where this is going. You know, this is why you're the protagonist in the story now in BFA, because of this reason right here.
Who aren't the last of their kind anymore, or that the last golden dragon lays so many eggs, so often in the same location, that the cannon amount is effectively infinity. In other words, so many that yes, every character does interact with a real egg, but as a result, what they did doesn't really change the course of fate. In either of these solutions, the story-related gravity of what's happening lessens, and therefore player interest wanes, not only because meaningfulness has been taken away, but also because they are aware that the developers artificially meddled with the story in a vain attempt to let each player feel more special.
There it is.
This is the worst of both worlds, as significance and interest
So lazy.
are at a minimum. In summary, world coherency dramatically affects gameplay significance, story/universe interest, and overall meaningfulness of a situation.
And this is why MMOs don't exist, really, anymore. Because of this specific reason. We cater to the individual's needs and not to the needs of the entire player base.
How a player interprets a situation is dependent on the developer's intention for it and the granted context. Potential interest is, of course, tied to the quality of the writing and world building, and not absolutely quantifiable for the purposes of this program. But gameplay significance and overall world coherency are visible properties that we can assess. Along the way...
So what this stick figure was talking about here is that most players don't give a shit about the lore, right? But it's because of the relevance of the lore creates that exhilarating experience of competition. By creating a seamless world through the vehicle of lore, you create player interaction. Most people don't care about the lore, but the lore itself at its primal state is why that exhilarating feeling exists.
So far, I've been setting you up for one more definition. It has to do with the use of the words like personal, reality, perspective. They're all things that mean a narrative dissonance or isolated subjectivity for each player, who are with other players in the same location. We will simply call this world incoherency. World incoherency is the opposite of world coherency. In an incoherent world, players are separated into their own phases, in which only they control certain aspects of their environment, or game world.
Sharding. Layering.
One game world becomes many when it is incoherent,
Here it
because
is.
the properties and the events of that world are different for each player's perspective. Let me be very clear. If one player has drunk a detect stealth potion and can see a stealthed rogue, and an unbuffed player cannot see the rogue, this has nothing to do with world coherency
Correct.
or incoherency.
It's a mechanic.
This is because there is an in-game, in-universe reason and or mechanic that justifies this difference in observation and interactivity. In other words, if something makes sense in character, then the world is still coherent, because the cause of it is actually in the game world.
I just gotta pause and say that the music selection for this is absolutely incredible.
Why? The rest of this program will be dedicated to explaining what world coherency does for a game, as we compare vanilla World of Warcraft to current World of Warcraft, which is in Legion at the time of writing this, now BFA. But first, we need to talk about why it's important. The ultimate goal is to explain why world coherency is important.
This is an introduction to a manuscript this person wrote. The manuscript is available on ClassicWoW.live via a Google Docs link. I highly suggest going and checking that out. It'll take you a while to read it. It took him 300 hours to write. 300 hours, guys. Okay? Please show him some love here. You go to his channel, check out this video, like it, subscribe, whatever you need to do, share it with your friends. This guy did this before he even had a YouTube channel, okay? And the level of personal sacrifice is just amazing.
Through giving meaning, by exposing and analyzing the issues of current WoW. But I realize that why a more meaningful game is a better game might not be clear to everyone. I hope you will have answered this for yourself by the end of this program, but I will lay down the primer. First, a word from the former president of Nintendo of America, Reggie Fils-Aime. Take it away, Reggie.
All right, Reggie.
The game is fun. The game is a battle. If it's not fun, why bother? If it's not a battle, where's the fun?
This is why hard games are good.
It's a test that you pass or a quest that you fail. A race against time. Fun and battle always locked together. But the game is also something else. It's a journey, a passport to new worlds, maybe even an odyssey. A look, a feel, an exploration. Close your focus and open your mind. Yes, the journey requires the right ticket. And that ticket is Nintendo Switch.
Okay, I need to go get one.
But in the end, it's not just where you can take your game. It's where your game can take you.
Yes.
So let's go.
Let's go, Reggie.
If you've played more than a couple of video games, you know that there isn't always a...
So, real quick, my very good friend of mine, who I used to live with in Kansas when I was doing my PhD, would always say, you know, I always used to tout classic WoW. And he's a vanilla veteran. And he said, life is hard already. Why would you play a game that's hard? I remember vanilla WoW. I remember the grind. I remember the shit I had to do and what I had to do to raid and X, Y, and Z. If life is already difficult and, you know, why would you play? And that's a valid argument, right? Logical. However, and I think what the content creator here is going to be talking about, Felix, is that the grind itself, the difficulty, the adventure, the hardship is what makes life worth living, and that's what makes games worth playing, right? It's not about... Easy is not... Maybe for some people it's fine, but I think the classic WoW people out there, like you and I, listening to this, it's what drives us to play the game more, right?
A literal battle taking place.
Let me rewind that so you hear what he said.
It's not... So let's go.
If you've played more than a couple of video games, you know that there isn't always a literal battle taking place. It can be a puzzle, a conflict of interest,
it's life.
A mental battle, a wrestling of priorities and management of resources, a battle with luck or your own pride or pity. Battle, in its most basic element, is an engaging push-and-pull interaction. And fun, of course. Fun is the most subjective thing of all. Fun is different for everybody. Reggie is still right about fun, though. If there's no battle, where's the fun? MMORPG is a special genre. It's special because it makes player interaction core to its battle, and an MMO has to make a lot of game design sacrifices in order to accommodate hundreds of thousands of players in a world that is intended to be persistent. In the beginning, video game hobbyists, casual consumers, and small children alike were keenly aware that they were committing to playing an objectively inferior game when they picked up an MMO. They couldn't expect grand adventures tailored to every player. They couldn't expect to be a character that actually changed the fate of the world.
Yes.
They understood that things had to be standardized and generally dumbed down and pruned, like quests and classes, and the big ones, combat and character progression. That a big bad boss would just respawn right behind them for the next player to grapple with, as if he was never killed. And the only proof they had that they actually defeated it was a completed quest, maybe an item. The world certainly didn't reflect it. At least forever.
Exactly.
Everyone understood, if not intuitively, then if they thought about it for 2 seconds, that this was done for the sake of fairness.
If you haven't had a chance to read the Wild Diary, I heavily suggest buying it. John Stats is a great guy. We interviewed him on DefTalk. The book's amazing. You can get a PDF version for pretty low cost. Definitely recommend reading it.
because the game was meant for thousands of concurrent players with highly variable skill levels. So why...
For someone who mained a Death Knight from Wrath On, I can concur that is exactly what it's like playing a Death Knight. You just basically smash your head on those like colored things right there where the baby's right hand is, and that's your DPS. That's just how you do it.
So why did MMORPGs even take off if they, compared to sculpted, reactive single-player games, could not advance beyond rudimentary? The answer is in player interaction. It all comes down to player interaction. All these sacrifices are made in order to get people together in a manageable, sustainable game world and let them interact. Let me tell you that every good memory someone has of an MMO involves other players in some way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What?
Think back and remember every memory you have from Vanilla WoW. Was it grinding mobs? No, it was PvP. It was meeting that friend in a dungeon. It was doing a raid first time you downed a boss. And who were you with? Other people. And could you accomplish those things, any of them, by yourself? No. Can you do that in BFA? Maybe. Yes. I mean, I don't remember anything past like Kata, or I can't go back to any moment and be like, oh, that was an amazing time I spent killing 70,000 mobs and looking at the cinematic that happened afterwards, because I was by myself. All my memories from, you know, BFA, or well, no, it's not BFA, Legion, was when I was raiding with my brother. But in Vanilla, you can have that experience without high-end raiding, without being a Grand Marshal or a High Warlord. You can have that experience every effing day because you're grouping up for quests, you're doing dungeons, you're talking to people because you need something, or a piece of gear, an item, you know, enchants, little things like enchants not being available in an auction house, you have to talk to an enchanter.
Are you fucking kidding me? I fucking hate you, shit.
That's really cool.
Whether it's direct competition, or cooperation, or achieving something incredible by themselves and being able to show off to other people who understand their accomplishment. The pleasure and the satisfaction comes from the knowledge or the faith that they're sharing this world with other people.
Yes.
It kind of works like that in real life, too, but not always. Now, what's the most common, poignant dismays one can have in an MMO? A dead capital city. A dead starting zone. An all-grey friends list. Not being able to sell or buy anything because no one else is buying or selling. Nobody joining your groups. Nobody talking. As someone who has dedicated portions of his life to many MMOs, some of them niche, and has sat through their grueling passing away, when there is loneliness, everything is changed to the color of pointlessness.
Yeah.
There is no fun. There is no battle. You
This is how I felt when NOS was shut down.
can aggro a tough NPC and solo it, and for a brief flickering moment not care that there is no one else to care. But will you do that tomorrow?
No.
In single-player games? Probably. In MMOs? No.
Because in a single-player game, you're catered to, right? That's the point of playing a single-player game. Skyrim, you know? You'll keep playing Skyrim because you know that's how the game is supposed to be. You're going into it willingly knowing that the world exists because you do. In an MMO, the world exists because many people exist. Hundreds of thousands to millions of people exist. I can tell you from experience, the reason I quit Legion was because of this exact reason. Who cares? If you're doing world quests over and over again for a piece of shitty purple gear that you can do because you're just logging in. The mere act of logging in gets you gear that's raid equivalent. How much fun can you have realistically doing that over and over again? And for the top end raiders, it doesn't matter, right? They're experiencing this with their team. It doesn't affect them, but most people aren't top end raiders, and you can still have fun in vanilla WoW if you're not a top-end raider, if you're not a min-maxer, because the world exists and is alive because of other players, regardless of their level of commitment, player quality. It doesn't matter.
Unless you've only played MMOs your entire life and you aren't aware of anything else, you won't, because without other players, other people, everything in an MMO becomes meaningless. Let's get back to Reggie again. In the end, it's not just where you can take your game. It's where your game can take you.
Yep.
So let's go.
MMOs have taken me many places. MMOs have, in full honesty, taken me to the best places I've ever been in my life. Those places were the best because I was with other players, other people who all understood each other and what was happening in this fantastic, captivating world. Those people brought me there, and I brought them there too.
Yep.
I'm not even an avid PvPer, but competition, rivalry, and faction war was an enormous elevator of those good places. The people gave everything in the game meaning, as integral roles that the developers built for people to fill in order to work in a system. In the bigger picture, we were all just other human beings sharing the human experience in this funny, inimitable way that non-players wouldn't understand. A more meaningful game is a better game, because games are meaningless. Turn the computer off, and the game doesn't exist anymore. You're back to reality, where things like money and food and shelter, enlightenment and companionship are meaningful. The time you spent playing is effectively time you chose not to spend gathering food, earning money, attracting companionship, and building skills that boost your lot in life. But games still matter to you.
That's why it doesn't matter how good of a player you are. You're dedicating time to something where you could be dedicating towards something else. You can say the same thing about TV. Fine. Or riding a bike. Or exercising. All of those things. But all of us are passionate in our own ways. And playing a video game like World of Warcraft made me a better person, made me a more whole person, and I wouldn't trade any of the time that I spent grinding and playing for anything else in the world. I've achieved a lot of good things in my life, and I'll continue to achieve those things. But I will never sacrifice. I will never say I'll never play a game, right? Ever again, because I know that I want to dedicate time and energy towards something like WoW because I love it. It makes it. The experience to me is way more beneficial than just watching TV or just staring at a wall, right? You're engaging with other people, and you're becoming better, and you're leveling up per se. You know, I think as long as you strike a balance between leveling up in the real world and leveling up in the game world, that's healthy. And, you know, if anybody gives you shit for it, it's how you want to be. It's what you're passionate about, guys. So you don't have to be High Warlord to be passionate. You can be whoever you want.
You still play them. You know they're not truly meaningless. They do increase your lot in life. For whatever reason you have, or confluence of rationalizations and mental quirks, games have the power to be meaningful to you and enrich you in a way that maybe only you understand.
That's awesome.
Being able to make a game more meaningful to its players is, even above technical advancement and creative manifestation, the most ascendant goal of a passionate game developer. Spoken or unspoken, I see time and time again that a developer, or any sort of creator, is most moved when others express their appreciation and share how much the game means to them.
That goes for content creation too, guys. When you guys watch videos I make, I don't want to say that I'm sitting here crying like this guy, but like, you know, creation, even though I'm using something that's already there, I'm just manipulating an existing thing. And some may say that's not creation at all, and that's totally fine. It's your opinion, and you're perfectly valid in that opinion. But, you know, when you guys consume my stuff and write back and say you liked it or didn't like it, it's an amazing feeling. And I think it's just a small iota of what someone like John Stats feels You know, when he sees people talking about World of Warcraft, or Omar Gonzalez, or, you know, any of these guys who have dedicated their lives to this game. So I just want to thank you all for watching stuff that I made, that me and my brother make. I mean, you don't have to do that. Who the hell are we, right? So I appreciate it.
From the 80s to the 2000s, the sheer thrill of pushing the boundaries of what a video game could do owes itself to the fact that millions of people ate up these games and had their minds blown by them. There are few pursuits in this world that are not driven by the recognition from others, or a group, or the world. The pride one takes in being able to make their own fantasy a reality through their own efforts sprouts wings and soars higher than they can imagine when they share it with others who also become enamored and invested and involved. That is why it is better when a game is more meaningful. Not only because it is an empirical net increase in fun, but because it serves the purpose of the game itself as a concept at a human level. Fulfillment, but also player interaction in real life. How any video game makes its content more meaningful to the player is the big mystery that every developer must figure out an answer to for himself. You can do it by providing a legitimate challenge that the player must train to overcome. You can do it by writing in a story that touches or connects with them.
Anything.
You can do it by making their decisions permanently alter the state of the world. MMOs generally do not have as much freedom in pursuing these things as single-player games do. Instead, they rely on something quite special, bringing people together into one unique world and letting them figure it out.
Absolutely. Encourage is a perfect example.
The players need to believe, have faith, and have proof that they are actually sharing this world with each other. That is your ticket. Do not throw it away to chase something that the game isn't even about.
Poignant that it's a world buff.
Well, congratulations. Hey, thanks for sticking with me for so long. I know this whole thing is kind of embarrassing, but it does mean a lot to me because I take video games way too seriously. Coming up next are 2 spoken excerpts from my essay, so you can have a taste of what's inside. They're from section 3, where I address all of the subjects. Get comfortable, and I hope you enjoy.
I have a huge problem with this one.
Level scaling is the antithesis of world coherency. Why? Well, here's another story. I do a quest in Ashara. I fight level 13 night elves in a little corner of the map. I turn in the quest and gain a level. Another quest takes me back to that corner. Suddenly, all of the same night elves, no matter if they're the ones I left alone or the ones that are respawns, are now level 14. The surrounding elk are also level 14 to boot. What's more is that I've parked another character, level 9, in the same location. I switched to the level 9 character. All of the same mobs are now level 9. Here is the million-dollar question. What level are the mobs? In the universe, how strong are they? And for the daily double, what was the point of even leveling up? The game gives me one answer, which is, I don't know, lol. This is not a good answer because we have lost all logical reference for the natural state of these NPCs.
It's like they don't exist. You know, it's like if you want people to go to endgame so effing bad, just give them endgame, right? Like, the act of leveling up is so core to role-playing games that, you know, removing that is just, it just makes everything feel kind of crappy, right? Like, even Skyrim did this, and to an extent, you know, that it's hard to do with a game like Skyrim, but in an MMO, there should be an incentive to level up more than just getting to endgame, right? It's getting incrementally more powerful, going back to those zones, those mobs that gave you trouble, and wiping them out like they were just a joke. And they don't have that in BFA. You know, I hated leveling in Legion because of this.
Without a defined natural state, the integrity of their existence and their relationship to the rest of the world becomes undefined too.
Yep.
We are unable to compare power levels across the game world. If these Night Elves are both level 9 and 53 at the same time, how strong is my character for beating them? Are they more or less threatening than an elite Razorfen Spearhide and Razorfen Crawl? Is my level 9 Baby Goblin Warlock extremely powerful? Or is my level 53 Draenei Monk a pathetic loser? Because player levels do not scale, except for in Battlegrounds, we can directly compare and establish a ranking for, and the distance between a level 9 Warlock and a level 53 Monk. If you had to, which one would you rather take as a companion? This critical function of power level assessment is integral to giving an entity a constant, persistent, real place in the world that can be comprehended both in-universe and in-game. Without it, nothing makes any sense.
Yeah, all these questions, you shouldn't be asking yourself these questions. They should be readily apparent by the game design and by the world itself. You know, you should definitely want to take that level 53 as a companion over level 9. But it doesn't matter in this scenario, right? Because everything scales. And that's something you can do. You can give permanence to a world that doesn't really have permanence. Yes, there are things that you do, like Gorbash Arena, you get that trinket and it has a respawn, sure. But one thing you can always rely on is that those level 10 to 11 mobs in Tier-Swell Glades will always be 10 to 11 mobs in Classic WoW.
As a proud American citizen to be, my immortal soul was trained by the Lord himself before my birth to take what I need from the clutches of Mother Nature and Father Christmas. I was imbued with the knowledge of a self-evident truth that a man need not justify himself for serving his survival and prosperity by any means necessary, for that itself is the ultimate justification for the actions of a man. It is my right as a being gifted with life by God to perform any duty that will afford me to live my life to its fullest, unrestrained by any manifestation of tyranny.
Amen.
If the greed of a scoundrel would put him above me, then I must redouble my own greed, and I am right to do it. If the ravenous stripping of ore veins would lead me to leave my zone with a mining level unfit for my destination, then I must best this self-made adversary through cunning or brutality. If a surreptitious society would perch an assassin on every Black Lotus spawn in the world and deprive my guild of the elixirs they need to brave the fires of hell, then I must raise my own militia and declare total war.
Yes,
Unscrupulous savages have infringed upon my blessed liberty to pursue my professions and improve my lot in life, while they would seek to be the sole claimant of this privilege. Peace was never an option. These lessons have been wrought into my bones through years of playing MMOs.
That's true.
In my youth, I was afeared of the challenge of having to put myself out there, be my own advocate, and fend for myself. But I matured. Some people did not, and they could not handle the competition, the possibility of failure, that others had needs too. They wanted to eliminate the possibility of having gathering nodes stolen from them. To name the beast, I and they were entitled. For a long time, these people were forgotten, because what they asked was too little undeserved benefit for them, for too much undeserved loss from the rest. What they were asking for was essentially Blizzard-facilitated item duping, which would then lead to Blizzard adjusting the rest of the game to account for it. Not healthy. Frightening, even. My God, the implications. Imagine my shock when one day they were obeyed.
Yeah.
And thus, when one person mined an ore node, it would still be there on everybody else's screen.
Oh,
the fruit
man.
of the world, ever ripe.
And so the children grew fat.
Wait, that's ridiculous, right? But that's what happened. That's what happened. And, like, to an extent, it's happening again with layering. Guys, this video is important, man. And I know I sound nitpicky, whatever. But at this point, you know, this probably won't do me any good by reacting to this, but it's important, guys. Like, this is why Classic WoW is excellent. This is why Vanilla was excellent, because of coherency of the world, a coherent world, object permanence within the world to whatever level you could actually have in an MMORPG. And when you mine a effing node, it shouldn't be there anymore. It's gone. And that's what he's talking about thermodynamics here, right? Like, how thermodynamically is that possible? I mean, yeah, okay, finally it does respawn at some point. But, like, come on. You got to act within try to act within the bounds of reality at some point, and this is what the game lost.
As you can see, I like to have fun. Sometimes. So anyway, that's it. Please, check out the link to my document. It's a Google Doc, don't worry about it. I hope you have a fantastic day, and, King's Honor, friend.
King's Honor, friend. Go read my shit. Guys, go read his shit. You know, this is the first of... I don't know if I ever do one of these again, and I don't care if I ever do, because this video is so effing important. I think this is... What this video does is that it encapsulates what so many of us have been trying to say on Reddit, on forums, on whatever, and you just can't put it into words. Well, this document and this video does that. It puts into words why so many of us love this game, and encapsulates every aspect. It encapsulates raiding, PvP, dungeoning, questing, professions, everything. World coherency is the reason why we're going back to classic Azeroth. This is why. This video talks about the reason why eloquently. The choice in music, the editing was excellent. It may look simplistic, but that's hard to do, guys. A lot of the editing he did, you know, capturing those images from WoW model viewer, doing the animations, cropping them, backgrounds, sounds, animation. It took a lot to do this, and he wrote, a huge document. This is a very important video. I would definitely put it on any type of media you can. Share it on Facebook. Asmongold viewers, if you're watching this, please tell Asmon to watch this video and react to it. Asmon, if you're listening, please. This video needs traction more than any other video I've ever seen. It's a way for us to kind of explain ourselves in a way that, it does it so eloquently. Look at me, love the dancing. But guys, again, this is World Coherency, WoW's Missing Link, an introduction by Felix Volks Goodman. The ClassicWoW.live link will be in the description. The link to his channel will be in the description. The link to the video will be in the description. Go to ClassicWoW.live, click on his Google Doc. I think he also has the link of the doc in his description of the video. Let me know if you want me to do any more of these. I'm not really that type of content creator. I really don't do reactions, but I feel like I needed to for this one. And actually, someone in the comments of this video asked me to, so I said yes and did it. If you guys want me to do more of these, I'll try to highlight my favorite pieces of content, and content creators. I have a lot of them, so I can do this perpetually forever. There'll be a lot of new content creators coming when Classic comes out too, so that'll give me a lot more stuff to look at. I'm not Asmongold size, I'm not a lot of these content creator size, but if there's anything I can do to push this up, I'm going to do that. I'm going to end now. The link will be in the top, in that corner, so I'll put that up so you can click on that and it'll go right to his channel, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you want me to do more of these in the comments below. Go over to his channel, get Asmon to watch it, get someone else to watch it. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out. Keep on keybiting and grinding. I'll see you guys in Classic Azeroth.